Thank you. Can we give a big round of applause to Brent? He thanks all of us, but it takes a lot to put an event together. So really a big thanks to Brent Lear for doing this. And can I just give a few shout outs, Brent, real quick? A big shout out to Zifty. Who told me about Zifty here? Did somebody tell me? Okay, I can't hear, I can't see either because of the lights. But I just got shrimp and grits from Zifty right before I came on stage. I can take this, eat this before I get on the TSA, and eat it and go back to New York until I come back here next year. So I am so happy. And it was a social experiment. I was tweeting to all of you, and some people recommended Zifty, or Zifty found me, and I just ordered $40 worth of food from them. So very expensive shrimp and grits. Anyways, thank you all for being here today, and we'll go through this real quick. What I hope that Anita and Andrew can do with me is to give practical insight for all of you and how you can use content and community to further grow your business. So 4 key points we want to talk about today, and we'll do this real fast. Or really, how can your businesses build a community, why it's important. That's one thing we're going to talk about. Point 2, we want to talk about the role of content in building a community. That's point 2. Point 3, what are some of the best practices in curating, stealing, plagiarizing, and monetizing content for your communities? And point 4, what are superfans? Who are those vibrant individuals who are deliriously excited about your products? How can you find them and use them better in your business? So those are the 4 things we're going to talk about in the next 18 minutes. How's that sound? Okay, so either of you can answer it. Small panel, so I won't pick names. You can just shout it out here. But let's first go through this first topic for about 5 minutes. Anita and Andrew. Communities. And I think the first question, just again, there's newbies here. There's experts here. Why are they even important? Maybe Anita, I'll start with you. Why are they so important at all? Why should the people here consider building a community at all?
Well, a community is a way of getting closer between people and your brand. I mean, when you think about it, people want to interact in a very, let's say, social, even personal way for them. So they want to connect with your brand in some way that has meaning to them. And if they can participate in something like a community where they feel comfortable, then they're going to participate with you. Jeff Nolan said something I thought was really important here. He said something to the effect that community is not something that you kind of deliver your people to or your customers to. A community is actually something that your customers, that people actually create. They get involved in, they get engaged in. So you don't do something to deliver a community to people. You don't foist it on them. They actually engage. And you got to let people take it where they will. So people want a community to develop in a way that means something to them. If they're interested in something, they're going to build the community around that interest. If they're not interested in it, you can spend a lot of time and a lot of money trying to actually push it on them, and it won't matter.
Yeah. Andrew, anything to add to that point?
So I'll break it down in 2 ways to make it kind of succinct. So there's marketing and market research, I think, are the 2 biggest things that brands and individuals can benefit from being a part of a community. On the market research side, for example, we worked with CommuniSpace, was one of our original clients, and they've kind of pioneered the market research online community, otherwise known as MROCs space, where they've gathered a set of people. They've kind of reinvented the model, for example, where it used to be a focus group of 10, and now they've expanded this focus group to be a couple hundred people, because not everybody's going to be as vocal as the other people. And then they've posed questions and tried to develop a lot of great insight, I think, is the biggest thing that can come from that market research point of view. From the other side of the equation, the marketing context, I think we've talked about it here. Word of mouth. I love one of the quotes that Jeff just shared in that last one about community SEO. I thought that was a pretty profound way to put it, and it reminded me, to me, the origins of social media were actually the message boards in the late '90s, and that's when I was a teenager, that's where I really gravitated towards to really connect with people that I shared similar interests to, and that was I never really had the opportunity to do that. And to that end, one of the funny things I like to say is Facebook is where you go to hang out with your high school friends, but one of the beauties of Twitter is it's kind of where I go to hang out with the people that I wish I went to high school with, the people that I share common interests with, and the message boards was similar in that sense.
And I think that is so cool. You don't have any socks on. I like that. That's really cool.
Part of the fashion.
Okay, yeah, it's nice. And Anita, help us understand. How many here believe you have built communities in your business? You have communities. Okay, how many of you don't have communities? Okay, and then how many wish you had communities? Curious. Okay, good. So, Anita, help us understand as well. You're with Small Biz Trends, one of the biggest sites for small businesses out there, which I hope all of you read what Anita and her team write. Is there a difference, Anita, between writing and developing content that people read and or having a community, if you understand? Is there a difference, or are they both the same? Meaning, any one of the businesses out here, maybe an accountant. They're writing information about accounting, people reading it. Is that difference than having a community of people, or are they both the same? Can you help us understand those differences?
Well, I like to think of communities as there being a lot of communities out there, and some of them overlap, and some don't necessarily overlap. But we run communities, that's what our business is. Some of them are based upon like a magazine model. So Small Business Trends is actually like a magazine where we're publishing content. We have a lot of contributors who publish that content. We run another site that's actually very, very, very popular among small businesses, and it's totally curated content. So it's a site where the members go and they share their own content. And nobody's really writing anything for them from my organization. It's really them coming in and saying, hey, I'm a small business. I have something to share with other business people. I'm going to share my content. And then we have a large number of people who come to that site and say, hey, I'm looking for content, or I'm trying to connect with people who are interested in something. So I think to net it all out, content is kind of like the foundation for a lot of things. Think of this as like going to a cocktail party. If you went to a cocktail party and nobody spoke, okay, what a boring party, right? And I guess unless everybody threw off their clothes and ran around, but the point is—
That sounds fun, actually. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
But the point is, you would go, and unless there were some communication and there was some content being shared, I mean, there really isn't anything where you can find common ground. Content is what helps you do that.
Gotcha. Anything to add?
I was too interested in what Anita had to say. Can you repeat the question?
No, I was just saying the
Thinking about
difference.
throwing off the clothes
I think
and
Anita covered it well. The difference between content that you're publishing, people are reading, and a community where people are talking with each other.
I think some of the bigger things to pay attention to is that trust and rapport that you can develop with the people that are a part of the community. I think content goes a long way because we can't always be in sales mode. To me, it's probably something like an 80-20, even 90-10 dynamic of sales on the minority end, and really just marketing and developing that trust and rapport with time as the number one priority.
And we'll move to the next section. We're already talking about content a bit, but before we move there, one advice I can say, and I don't know if this is, I'm sinning by saying this in a world of content people, but I tell people also, don't be afraid to go offline. I've been doing this here, is a community. Brent's put together Social Biz Atlanta. So don't be afraid, dear small business owners and big businesses, to develop your own events. So much of it gets stuck, I think, on being online. I have to tweet all day long. It's okay to have a meetup group. So that's a way to also build community. Let's move to the second part of this, Adam and Anita, and talk about, we've touched on it a bit, but the role of content. And I think that when I think of content, there's a few things. One, I have to acquire it. So some people may wonder, well, I'm a one-person shop. Or maybe I'm 500 employees strong. How do I get content? And I'll repeat these. Two, any platforms you can think of, any tools or services that people may use to help manage that content. And let's talk a bit about monetization. So point number one, how can you advise people to get content? We're all busy. I'm a writer. All of you are writers. Brent's a writer. But what about those who are not writing? How can they get content?
I'll go first. So I think John specifically highlighted Hootsuite. I think that's top of mind for a lot of people in terms of publication medium, as well as from a monitoring and digesting of content standpoint. Hootsuite's great. Just to name a couple real quick. I know the enterprise has quickly gravitated towards Sprinkler. Okay. They've kind of come out of left field.
And Sprinkler, I guess those are writing
Sprinkler with no E. And then others, CoTweet, Sprout Social. These are all, a lot of brands have taken to any of these platforms to really try to digest all that content as well as use it as
And that's how to read it. Now, what about content that I want to use for my website? And Anita or Adam, you can answer that. But again, what about that type of content? I'm I'm a airplane engine manufacturer here in Atlanta somewhere. I need to have content for my website. How do I get it? So that's another type of content.
Well, one thing what's really popular today is guest posting, guest blogging. It's often misused, but it's also a very powerful thing. So you can very simply open up a website and say we're accepting guest blog posts. and actually put a link or a page on there that says submit a guest blog post, because many people will actually search for that term in Google. So you can then accept guest blog posts. I will say this, some people have the idea that accepting guest blog posts is like a free, easy way of getting content. It isn't going to take you any time. Well, it means you don't have to write it, but you will have an investment of time, and especially if you do a lot of it, if you accept a lot of it, the work involved grows exponentially, trust me. But that's one way of getting it. You can also, go out on Twitter and retweet posts from other people. Find content that you like. I mean, a lot of people do this on Twitter. And just share what you like. It doesn't have to be your content. But I've seen some great Twitter feeds that are nothing but curated content from other sources. And they've become very, very popular because the people always manage to find the really interesting stuff and share it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. I think for those of you who are thinking, oh, I only have 2 Twitter followers, maybe that's because you're tweeting too much. Maybe people need to stop and share what others are doing. So keep that in mind as well. That's another tip, is that it's okay to hit retweet once in a while. Everybody doesn't have to just retweet what you're writing. You can share the love and retweet other people have as well. Please.
I'll add a couple more things. I mean, I think HubSpot, in my opinion, are the kings of content these days. They're all about inbound marketing. And then another thing to point out that I think a lot of people have failed to realize, dating back to 2006 when Twitter really got going. They were a communication platform more than anything for starters. And then over time, as the early adopters kind of phased out, well, they haven't phased out necessarily per se, but a lot of these people, just the general masses, have adopted the platform, and it's become more of an information network than anything. So I think, going back to what the original purpose of Twitter was set out to be, if you look at it from that point of view, not just being reactive, but being proactive and finding the people that are going to want to engage with certain content and really trying to push it to them specifically. To me, this whole concept of marketing to the masses is something a bit that has been a traditional point of view, where I think where everything is headed is more of the marketing down to the individual level, and that's something that Insightful is trying to pioneer as well.
Right. And time is short, so we're going to have about 2 or 3 more points, and then we will close this session. We want to keep back on track as best we can. So are you learning something so far in the few minutes we've been together? Okay, great. So let's talk about, there was some companies have decided to move off Twitter, or off Facebook, I should say, to have their own tools and services. Some would decide to move off these third-party services and say, I'm only going to Facebook. Real quick, can you address that? Meaning, for the business owners out here, should they decide, you know what, I'm going to put all my money into Facebook or one of the standard platforms and do that? Or should they consider maybe having their own ecosystem, owning their own data? Is there a hybrid? Can we talk about that a bit?
I'll go first. I think it really depends on what your audience is.
Okay.
You really have to define what that target customer looks like. And then depending if they're male, female, what age bracket they're in, all these different characteristics, even what their interests are. Obviously Pinterest, if you got a female audience, Pinterest might be a very valuable resource, especially if it's a visually oriented service or product that you're trying to push. When it's Twitter, that can appeal to just about everybody. To one of your questions, I'm of the mentality that you shouldn't try to spread your wings, all over the place. I think you really kind of try to go hard on a particular platform or two. And if you dedicate yourself to that one, you're going to really make the most of it. But at the same time, you can't just dismiss some others. You've got to, get some more resources available to address those with time.
And so you're telling the people out here who hired 10 interns to be on all 10 platforms, stop doing that. That's the basic of that, correct?
It really depends on how quality those resources are.
Okay, but to test it to make sure. Anita.
All right, so I'm going to respectfully disagree with you there.
So bite.
Bite. All right. So what you say about focus, I think, is really, really important. I definitely would agree with you there. I would say this. So first of all, I would never be on a third-party platform exclusively. You always want to be on your own real estate that you own, because these third-party platforms, they change. They change their terms and conditions. They change what they're doing, and they're going to pull the rug out from under you someday. And you're not going to like that, especially if you've invested a lot of money in building that up. But if you have your own owned real estate, first of all, and then you think of it as outposts on various social media sites where you meet the community on their home turf that they feel comfortable on. So for people who love Facebook, you've got a Facebook page and you meet them there where they feel good. And for people who like Twitter, you maintain an active Twitter presence and you meet them there as well. But don't give up your home site. You know, in our case, we have profiles on all the major social networks. We've got Facebook pages and one for each one of our brands. We've got Twitter presence, we've got Pinterest presence, we've got Google Plus presence, which is kind of interesting. Hardly anybody has talked about Google Plus here today, which I find pretty fascinating. But we try to meet up with people where they want to be because they've shown a preference. And so you give it to them in the format that they like, where they want it. And that way you're meeting them and you're not trying to bring them into a place where they feel uncomfortable or foisting that community onto them. Now, I will say there is a lot to be said for focus in the sense that you can't be good at everything. And I would say even with the profiles we maintain, that we're really good on Twitter, we're kind of okay on Facebook, we're not so hot on Google Plus and other things because you can't be great at everything. Can't even be good at everything.
Awesome. No, and I think in Anita's case, she has outposts on places that are not even there yet. So, Adam, real quick, then we're going to go to Superfans, and then we're going to close Brent. Please,
Yeah,
Adam.
well, one thing I was going to say about Facebook is, in my opinion, everybody's kind of liked out to a certain degree. So if you're a small business owner, it's tough to really get off the ground, and it's tough to cultivate that audience. To me, it's a little easier on a platform like Twitter or Pinterest or some of the other ones where you can take certain proactive efforts to really kind of put your name out there and really connect with individuals, whereas with Facebook, at the moment, as far as I can tell, the biggest thing that you can do to really cultivate an audience is to advertise, and that's also expensive. So.
In our last point, let's talk about superfans. And again, superfans are those deliriously excited people who love you to death. Let's just touch on that. Anita and Adam, what can you tell us about that? We have, again, small businesses, big businesses out here. Superfans are important. These are these excited people. Any advice on how we can find them? And two, how we can leverage them better? Any thoughts on that, this aspect of superfans?
Sure. I think there's a number of good tools out there. I'm assuming most people should know, if you don't already, about Clout by now. They've become the default. Clout with the K, that is. They become the default measure of online influence basically overnight. A couple others that compete with them are Cred with a K, as well as Peer Index. From a topical influence standpoint, there's some great resources out there, such like Tracker, Stock Metrics, even Insightful, even though we're not necessarily positioning ourselves as a influencer marketing tool. I know Razorfish.
What is your tool? What is it? So tell us again your company. I mean, yeah.
Sure.
In brief, we have Anita, then we're going to.
Insightful is more focused on social marketing automation as a whole. The influencer identification piece is just one component of that, but we're trying to make these lists actionable so that once you figure out who your top targets are, whether they are influencers or prospects, you can actually act on them and try to facilitate the objective at the end of the day.
Anything else on that, Anita?
Well, one of the things I'd say that I love about Twitter is so easy to search and find things on, as opposed to, say, Facebook and Google Plus, which tend to be closed-walled gardens. And on Twitter, it's easy to search by keyword of whatever you're interested in, or even search by who's talking about certain brand names. And maybe it's your brand, maybe it's your competitors' brands, or closely aligned brands. And that's a good starting place. So you find who may be talking about that, and then you just follow the trail back. You follow from them. Now, who are they following? Who are they retweeting? And so on. And from there, you'll very quickly keep bumping into the same people on Twitter, and then you can find them on other social networks as well. But that's sort of a shortcut way that we use just because Twitter lends itself to searching, we think, pretty easily to find that.
So basically, overall, we covered how can you build a profitable community. We didn't give you everything there is, but I think a few quick, fast tips. Thank you all very much. We covered the role of content, why it's so important. Told you a little bit how to steal it, find it, plagiarize it, whatever you want to do. Third, we did talk a little about curating it and monetizing it. And the last thing, we talked about superfans. And I think superfans are very important. In fact, I think a mutual friend of ours, Bauchi, she used to be at Ring Central. She has a great presentation on superfans. If anybody wants that, let me know, and I will give you a link to that video. Brent, thank you very much. I think we're done.
Give everybody up there a round of applause. That was awesome.